Good morning, and welcome to the Global Energy Institute's Energy Innovate series, where we convene experts to discuss the innovation that is driving America's energy future. Let me once again start by thanking the sponsor of Energy Innovates, Siemens Energy, and invite you to watch this short video from our sponsor.
If the one constant in life is change, shouldn't we all change for the better? Let's champion the energy transformation. Why can't global challenges become opportunities? Let's make our ideas a reality. What if an idea became a solution for millions? Let's transform our natural resources. Shouldn't reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy be for all? Let's see people as the catalysts of real change. Isn't it time we harnessed our collective energy? Let's galvanize change in our homes and offices and industries. Because shouldn't our technology serve us today and tomorrow? Let's energize society.
So today, we're focusing on plastics innovation for sustainability and climate progress. And I'm very pleased to welcome Chris John, President and CEO of the American Chemistry Council, to set the stage for our conversation. Thanks for being here, Chris.
Thank you.
So 27 years ago, I started to work with the American Plastics Council, now the plastics division at ACC. So it feels like I've come full circle, or part of the circular economy, if you will. In that time, the industry you represent has done amazing, innovative work to be part of the solution to our global sustainability and climate challenges. So what are the new approaches from the chemical sector that make plastics innovation such an important contributor to climate solutions?
Really, thank you for the question, Marty, and appreciate the partnership with the Chamber and your team. When I think of this issue, I think of two ways that innovations in plastics are helping drive climate solutions. The first is that plastic materials literally enable a lower carbon and clean energy future through many applications across a variety of sectors. And just let me give you a few examples. In the auto industry, plastics result in significantly lighter vehicles that improve fuel efficiency. In the built environment, plastic foam insulation reduces energy consumption in buildings. In consumer goods like food, plastic packaging extends the shelf life of food, which reduces food waste and avoids emission. We also see when we look at alternative energy, whether it's solar or wind energy production, you use plastics to encase solar panels, you make the blades of a wind turbine. And in these applications, not only do plastic help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, but it actually helps create green energy. And so if you think of it like your gas tank in your car, not only can you drive further, but the gas tank is refilling itself as you go. I think the other piece that I look at in regards to innovation is our industry is becoming more circular every year. And with advanced molecular recycling technology, we can break down mixed plastic feedstocks to their basic building blocks, which then can be used to make entirely new plastics or other products. And these materials are ultra clean, quality plastics that can go into very demanding applications such as medical devices, for example. So this helps address some of the traditional challenges we have with recycling as you and I know it. And so if you think of things like snack wrappers or toothpaste tubes, really advanced recycling is the only way to deal with those issues. And so we've seen significant investment in this space over the past few years. Over $6 billion in projects have been announced by a number of our member companies. For example, Eastman Chemical Company recently announced plans to build one of the world's largest plastic molecular advanced recycling facilities in Tennessee. CP Chem and Braven have reached a long-term supply agreement where Braven's going to convert mixed, difficult to reduce plastics into a feedstock for making new circular plastics. And ExxonMobil is partnering with Plastic Energy on an advanced recycling facility in France, expected to be one of Europe's largest, to convert plastic waste into feedstocks, quality polymers. So Marty, that was a long answer to your question, but there's a lot happening very quickly in this space, and it's really exciting to see it take off.
Great. That's really, it's fascinating to hear about all that. And obviously, the industry has put a lot of effort into innovating on both the products that we all rely on, but as you said, also on the creating the circular economy. So if we want to get more granular in the policy side of this, I mean, what are some of the specific federal policies that you believe are needed to help advance those efforts?
Yeah, it's a really important question, Marty, and I can't emphasize this enough, how important the role of government, particularly the federal government, has to play here. And we're really looking for Congress to act quickly to pass sensible policies that enable the innovations that we're talking about and to accelerate these private sector investments that we're seeing so we can maximize the impact. So our members, America's plastics makers, have called on Congress, and we've got 5 actions for sustainable change that we think will jumpstart a circular economy. So the first piece of that is to require all plastic packaging to include at least 30% recycled plastic by 2030. The second piece is to develop a modern regulatory system to enable the rapid scaling of this advanced recycling technology, and also at the same time grow mechanical recycling. We still need that to solve the problem. The third piece is to create a national framework for plastics recycling that includes national recycling standards to help local communities recycle better and engage the entire plastics value chain. The fourth piece, specific to climate, is we're asking and calling for the National Academy of Sciences to study greenhouse gas emissions from all materials, including plastics, to help guide our policy going forward. And then the last piece is to establish an American-designed producer responsibility system to help increase recycling, not only the access, but education and outreach to consumers. So this is really kind of a comprehensive approach to a challenging issue. And we really need, as I said, Congress to act quickly on it. Unfortunately, some in Congress are taking I think a counterproductive approach to this and are pushing bans, are pushing taxes, curbs on production. We're even seeing in the reconciliation bill right now potential taxes on plastics as a pay-for in that bill, which actually will do nothing to address the issue of plastic waste. And so there's going to be a lot of unintended consequences there, mainly disruption of American supply chains for needed equipment and products. And it's also going to have the unintended consequence of making a lower carbon future more difficult to achieve. So we think we've got a better way to address the plastic waste challenge going forward.
Chris, that's really exciting. Let's see how hard the industry itself is leaning into these questions, and we certainly look forward to working with you in partnership on that. You know, as I noted, almost 30 years ago, as I was working with the Plastics Council on some of these same issues, I think a common theme is that, you know, trying to get both the general public and even the elected officials to fully appreciate not only what the industry has done, but the role that plastics and the chemicals industry more broadly, you know, plays in our daily lives. So as we think more about moving forward, I mean, I guess I'd like to ask you, what do you see? What are the challenges that are still facing the chemicals and plastic sectors and their value chains in helping to accelerate the development and deployment of the recycling infrastructure and in meeting the climate goals that your members have set out?
Yeah, so it's a really smart question, Marty. We've come a long way since you were here, but we've still got work to do. And I think I've touched on a little bit, but it's the biggest challenge we really have right now is the issue of waste. And just to be clear for everyone watching here, plastics do not belong in our environment, end of story. And so America's plastics makers are taking meaningful actions to help solve this issue. This is an engineering problem, and it can be solved with technologies that exist today. Unfortunately, we've got some who think the solution is to ban or eliminate plastics altogether. But again, as I mentioned before, that's going to create unintended consequences, particularly for climate and greenhouse gas emissions. So as we look at all the essential applications of plastic across the board, whether it's reducing emissions, reducing water use, preserving habitat, improving our hygiene, the benefits can't be ignored. And to solve this waste issue, the industry, we are deploying really our best and brightest scientists and engineers. We're already implementing these solutions around the globe, and we just need help from the federal government to accelerate that change. So we're really excited about the possibilities and look forward to working with everybody in DC to make that happen.
Great. Well, listen, I appreciate that. If you don't mind, we got a couple of questions from the audience as well. And we were asking, what type of measurements you're using to document results of plastics waste reduced?
So, so right now, recycling rates, frankly, are rather low. And as I mentioned before, snack wrappers, toothpaste tubes, that kind of things are not handled very well by the traditional recycling system we have. So we do have data on what we're doing in terms of plastic recycling now. There is a baseline there, and we'll be able to measure against that as we go forward. And then, as I said, in our first plank of our plan was the goal to have 30% of plastic packaging recycled by the year 2030. So we do have some metrics by which we can measure progress. And look, we're 2/3 of the way through 2021, and that's the urgency we're feeling to get Congress to act to help enable us moving forward to meet those measurements.
Great. Maybe one final question. You mentioned that mechanical recycling is still a very important part of the equation. Clearly we're going to need the innovation of advanced recycling to get us to the goal that we all that we all share. But just focusing on the mechanical side for a moment, I mean, what are is your sense of where we stand now? How are we doing on that front?
Yeah, I think that there's significant opportunities for growth there as well. Particularly for plastics, and we're working with everybody in the plastics value chain, and I referred to that briefly earlier, to meet these goals. And we're going to need mechanical recycling to grow as well. That's why we're looking for national standards. You go to different jurisdictions and they have different rules and different, some things you can put in your blue bin and some things you can't, and that varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And that's why we're looking for a more uniform standard to enable that going forward. But we're going to need mechanical recycling to expand significantly to be successful in addressing this challenge going forward.
Great. Well, again, as you noted, it's the innovation I think that we've got to be able to help promote, and we appreciated your partnership with us last year as we got the Energy Act passed and have all this federal research dollars going into the innovation that's going to be necessary to get us to our broader climate sustainability goals. So, Chris, I really appreciate you joining us today. Thank you again. Appreciate your partnership and that we share with both you and your team. You've got a great team to work with.
Absolutely. Right back at you, Marty. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
All right. We'll see you soon.
Take care.
Now I'm delighted to welcome Cheryl Telford, Chief Sustainability Officer and Vice President of EHS for the Chemours Company. Cheryl, thank you for joining us today.
Marty, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, I'll let you give us some insights into what the company makes and what it does, but suffice to say that Chemours is a market leader in the manufacture of advanced performance materials that we've all come to rely on. So let's jump in. Cheryl, plastics are ubiquitous. It's hard to imagine a day where we don't use them and rely on them, but their importance to modern society is often overlooked and taken for granted. As you provide us an overview of Chemours, can you also help identify for us some of the important applications of plastics-based products, including those produced by Chemours, of course, that the general public may not appreciate?
Absolutely. And so the Chemours Company, for those that aren't familiar, manufactures some really, really essential chemistries, whether it's TiO2 or titanium dioxide, whether it's our advanced performance materials business that manufactures the fluoropolymers that you referenced, or our thermal and specialty solutions businesses that deals with low GWP refrigerants, non-ozone depleting. We believe that our chemistry is essential to the functioning of modern society and furthering societal progress and all of our shared sustainability goals. But when you talk specifically about plastic-based products, fluoropolymers are an example of specialty performance materials with unique characteristics that really go into so many numerous applications. At the same time, I would say across the chemistry industry, whether it's fluoropolymers more broadly, the understanding of the role of chemistry in meeting societal needs and sustainability is not well understood. And so as an example, for fluoropolymers in particular, they're used in everything from renewable energy. They enable green hydrogen. They enable 5G, battery storage, lithium batteries, medical devices. The materials or the end applications of these fluoropolymers are so incredibly important to society. But if I take a step back and ask my mother, what are fluoropolymers? She's going to say, I have no idea. And why should I care? And that's our challenge as an industry, to begin to translate for the broader community what it is that these chemistries deliver, the value of these chemistries to each and every person around the globe every single day. So bottom line, chemistry enables the solutions that solve some of our world's greatest challenges, whether it's the fluoropolymers that I just discussed, the fluorochemicals like non-ozone depleting, low GWP refrigerants, or TiO2 that helps keep food fresher and buildings cooler. Chemistry is vital to our world, period. Our challenge is to ensure that we are producing and using these chemistries across our value chains safely and responsibly.
Great. Well, I appreciate that, and certainly we need to have a better understanding of the general public on the important role that chemistry and certainly plastics and these performance materials play in our lives. And a big part of that is the innovation of the industry. So, in fact, our Energy Innovates program has focused on the innovative nature of the energy sector and its downstream applications, and the role that innovation will play in meeting our climate and sustainability challenges, those global challenges. So what are the sustainability priorities for Chemours, and how do they focus on reducing greenhouse gas emissions in particular? And more broadly, how do they address those global sustainability challenges?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so our commitment to sustainability is unwavering, and it's incorporated into everything that we do. It's part of our ethos. It's part of our company's strategy. It really is all of our 6,500 employees around the globe and how they execute against that ethos. But in particular, to your point, we have some very bold climate goals. We announced in April of this year more progressive, more profound climate goals. To include a 60% absolute reduction in our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 2030, which is aligned with a science-based target on a journey to net zero 2050. And we're going to accomplish that in a number of ways. We'll accomplish that, of course, through energy efficiency work. We'll accomplish that through renewable energy. But we're also working in partnership with others to test new technologies, new capabilities, to include, hydrogen. How do we apply those technologies at our sites and bring the data and that capability to the broader universe so that we can scale those technologies up even further and even faster? And to me, that's really critical, is that notion of we need to do what we as a company can and must do. The time to act on climate is now. We are fully committed to taking those actions, but our chemistries also really are a key component in how the world will achieve carbon zero, net zero by 2050. And we have to do this working in partnership. I truly believe that all of us want to get to that ultimate goal of net zero 2050. I also believe that to get there, it's going to take partnerships, the likes of which none of us have ever seen, whether it's partnerships within the business community, with academics, government support, with NGOs. We all need to be all in. We're committed to be there from the Chemours perspective, both addressing our issues in-house at our manufacturing sites, delivering chemistries that really are innovative and help to solve some of those world's greatest challenges. But it's going to take a collaboration, like I said, unlike any of us have ever seen, to really get to our ambition at 2050.
Great. Well, Cheryl, I think you said it very well, and I think that we would certainly agree completely with you about the need for partnership. I think the only way to get to the ambition that we're all striving for is to make sure we have the technology available, the policy in place, and the market signals to get the business community to continue innovating the way that Chemours has and then the industry has. So I think that's really impressive what you've set out for the company. But with such bold goals, do you ever sit up at night wondering how you'll be able to achieve them?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. And I truly believe that reaching net zero, for example, by 2050 is a moonshot. Bottom line, it's a moonshot. But I also believe that through innovation, technology, and partnerships, the likes of which we haven't seen, I believe that getting there is possible. I believe that none of us is as smart as all of us at the end of the day. And so it's through that combined effort of individual companies, government, all of the stakeholders, partnerships, we will get there. And frankly, we must get there. And I use the word moonshot not lightly, right? That was something some of us might remember, as an aspiration. We didn't know how we were going to get there, and we did. As a country, as a globe, we delivered. This is the same type of thing, and I believe in our people. I believe in our technology, but I also believe, and this is a different dimension of ESG, to really make this happen, we have to fully embrace and make sure that we are enabling from the business community each and every individual to bring their whole selves to work, that we are encouraging that innovation, that we are making our workplaces safe for people to bring ideas. And just as a quick aside, when we set one of our corporate responsibility commitment goals, one of them was to reduce by 99% or greater fluorinated organic emissions from our manufacturing sites. And we had an idea of how we were going to get there, but as it turns out, with some great innovation and collaboration with our team internally, frankly, as well as with consultation with others externally, our team pushed back and they said, wait a minute, we can do this in a much more elegant way. There's a far better way to achieve this. And we listened, and thank goodness they brought those ideas forward. We all have to keep creating that environment. In Chemours, we call it holistic safety. We want you to be physically safe, but we want you to feel safe in all dimensions of work. Bring your ideas, bring your concerns. And frankly, that worked for us because we are now poised to continue our progress, which has been pretty amazing, I might add, against that goal, but in different ways than we ever would have expected.
Well, I think that's great to focus on the need for that collaboration and empowering your team to be able to pursue the goals that the company sets out there. If I could get a little more granular on another kind of theme of the event today, I want to get a sense from you on what the role of the recycling infrastructure in achieving Chemours goals.
Yeah. So really good question. And, when I think about recycling, I think of work that we have underway, for example, in our TiO2 business. And the TiO2 business is partnering with universities, other companies, researchers in Europe, and they're calling it the Recycle to Reclaim program. And what they're seeking to accomplish is, how do you get that TiO2 out of plastics? How do you get it back so that we don't need to continue to manufacture as much TiO2, potentially, and it can be reused? Those are the types of thinking on circularity that are really profound, that are really intriguing, that I think really is going to require creativity across all of the market places and across all industry. How do we get away from the make to waste, continuum, and really start thinking about product design upfront? And how do we make all of our processes more circular? So that's how we're thinking about it within the company. Recycle to Reclaim is a very good example of what we're thinking. There's still a lot more work to do, and I would argue here as well, plenty of opportunity for partnership, for infrastructure, for all kinds of collaboration to make this a reality for everyone.
Great. Well, Cheryl, I really appreciate the insights you provided us on how your company, and I know many of your colleagues across the industry are pursuing these challenges, but not just challenges, they're opportunities, as you pointed out. So I just want to thank you again for joining us today and contributing to our conversation, and say how much I look forward to working with you and your team.
Thank you, Marty. It was such a pleasure to be here today. And I too look forward to how we can work collaboratively together to advance these goals of sustainability and policy. And look, we've got great businesses, we've got great people. Let's make a difference together.
Great. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Christopher Guth, the Senior Vice President at the Chamber's Global Energy Institute, and I'm delighted to welcome Mary Draves, Chief Sustainability Officer and Vice President for Environment, Health, and Safety for Dow. Good morning, Mary.
Hey, Chris. Good morning. How are you?
I'm excellent. Now, Dow is one of the world's largest and most innovative science and manufacturing companies, which means you produce a lot of product. Can you give us an overview of Dow's leading role in plastics innovation and products, as well as the importance of those products to not only modern life, but also to addressing environmental concerns?
Yeah, Chris, again, thanks for having me today, and such an important conversation we're all having. Really enjoyed listening to my friend and colleague Cheryl Telford, and also Chris from American Chemistry Council talking about their particular areas. For us, plastics, as we know it, is an indispensable material for the world's consumers, and really a vital part of our journey towards that zero carbon future. In fact, we don't believe we'll be able to reach the UN Sustainable Development Goals without plastic. If we think about what plastic provides, that lightweighting plastic, you heard Chris talk about it a little bit earlier in vehicles, but it also provides all kinds of different applications for growing populations around the world, greater access to things like fresh food, safe drinking water, medicines. It also drastically reduces food spoilage and waste. And we all know that food waste is a significant contributor to carbon emissions globally. We also see that plastics have approximately 4 times less environmental cost, particularly when it comes to carbon emissions compared to other materials. And they offer a more affordable and really healthier quality of life for billions of people. At the same time, we're facing an unacceptable consequence of plastic. And Chris mentioned this earlier. Too much plastic waste is entering like our oceans, our rivers, and our natural environment. And this just cannot continue. At Dow, we're working on, a more sustainable and circular economy for plastics. We have over 400 brand owners have responded to consumer demand for more sustainable products, really by making commitments to design packaging for reuse and recyclability. So we're really focused on that, as well as using more recycled materials in their products. Dow uses material science expertise, and you heard Cheryl talk about, what do our chemistries bring to life, to help those brand owners really deliver on those fronts. We've worked with such brands as Kellogg's, and I remember Kellogg's as a kid, and their Bare Naked granola brand to really transform some of their products to make those packages fully recyclable using recyclable ready material, which is an innovation of Dow's. Dow has also begun to sell a new line of mechanically recycled plastic resins, a family of products that can be used in either flexible or rigid plastic applications. We offer a broad range of other products that can enable even more plastics to be recycled, which is very important. So the demand and the design side of circularity are really important, and enabling additional end markets for those plastics is also important. So, we're working with partners around the globe, and you heard Cheryl mention this also, is that, collaboration is key, including universities, to really figure out how to construct different things. And one of those innovations that we have right now is this polymer modified asphalt roads that has post-consumer recycled plastic. One of these roads is near where I live. And this technology not only provides us with a way to keep waste, out of the environment, but that early research has demonstrated that using those recycled plastics to modify asphalt actually improves the durability and road performance. Pilot projects for us around the world, we've laid more than 107 kilometers or 66 miles of pavement, and that's diverted over 220,000 pounds or 100 metric tons of plastic waste from landfills. And, and they've met all appropriate regulations and performance specifications. So we're also seeing that this new application has the potential to help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, energy consumption, and then that further need for resurfacing. So a lot going on in the space for us with our products.
Now, as you, Cheryl, and Chris have all succinctly noted, the plastics producers are leading on sustainability and addressing it head on. But how does the policy environment impact your innovation agenda?
Yeah, Chris, I think that simply good policy environment has and can propel the innovation agenda. And you heard Chris talk about this earlier. The unprecedented collaboration that we're going to need, though, is really key. I mean, we know that we can't do this alone, as Cheryl said. So we've got to work together with plastics producers like Dow, federal, state, local governments, brand owners, retailers, consumer groups, environmental NGOs, and the like. We've really got to work together if we're going to get to net zero by 2050 and really create the circularity for the plastics that we need. And I, like Cheryl, I believe that we can do this. We have brilliant minds among us. And there are a lot of policy tools that can help us. We talked a bit already about how we're working to meet the demand of our customers with more sustainable packaging. We worked with closed loop partners in the supply of that recycled content to meet the demand that we talked about earlier is stuck at about 6%. So we need more supply and more collections, a better recycling system to meet that demand. And, as we see, a lot of U.S. residents don't have that access to curbside recycling. Where I live now, I don't have access to curbside recycling. So my husband takes the recycling sometimes 3 times a week to the recycling center. And we have way too many different systems that are confusing for people, over 9,000 in the U.S. alone. This is one of the reasons why we support the EPA's recycling goal to reach that 50% recycling rate by 2030, and are looking forward to the release of the National Recycling Strategy. Dow and the American Chemistry Council, we also support the Recycling Partnerships Producer Responsibility Proposal, which is a uniquely American responsibility system. And there are really too many communities struggling to provide that basic recycling services to their residents, including Louisville, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Syracuse, also a lot of urban areas, rural areas. There are communities, though, that have infrastructure but need more education, like LA, Chicago, Houston, Philly, Dallas. And there are communities that just need updated infrastructure and education, like Detroit, New York. So good recycling access in a city is that every home has a recycling container on par with their regular trash. Automatic recycling pickup is there. We have sustained funding, and we help educate people on how to recycle properly. Senator Stabenow and Senator Portman's Recycle Act has provided money for education, which was included in the bipartisan infrastructure framework, which was a great start to this. And according to that, the recycling partnership, if we enable recycling for everyone in the U.S., it's estimated to deliver a very positive ROI, which is what we all want, that economic benefit of over $30 billion over 10 years and 200,000 new jobs. And more importantly, it saves also over 700 metric tons of CO2. We also appreciate Senator Sullivan and Senator Whitehouse efforts to get SOS and SOS2 signed into law. And we're very strong supporters of the American Chemistry Council's call for 30% recycled content by 2030, which Chris mentioned earlier. And finally, I think we would be remiss if we didn't mention that support and the need for a strong global agreement on plastics to help tackle waste in the environment, and urging all governments and stakeholders worldwide to press for a treaty resolution at the upcoming United Nations meetings.
Now, you mentioned recycling, as did Cheryl. What does advanced recycling look like, and why is it so important to solving this circularity?
Yeah. Chris, advanced recycling is really critical to the suite of opportunities that we need to bring in order to meet that demand for creating a more circular economy for plastics. And we have to scale up both the idea of mechanical and traditional recycling, which many of us are more familiar with, and then advanced recycling. They're both absolutely, critical. If you're like me, you may be familiar with more of that traditional recycling, which doesn't change the chemical structure of the used plastic, but it's just it's mechanically recycled and remanufactured into something else. Advanced recycling, and you heard Chris speak to this, is really about taking and changing the chemical structure. And it's really kind of an umbrella term that we hear for a variety of different technologies that break plastic back down into basic molecules so that we can use it to make newer, high quality materials. It's really critical because there are some plastics that just cannot be mechanically recycled. So we have to have options. And for those harder to recycle used plastics, we need this idea of advanced recycling. It's also critical because we can use advanced recycling to create the use of materials like food grade and medical grade products, which have higher requirements from a quality standard. And last, advanced recycling processes are expected to save us, 1.5 tons of CO2 for each ton of recycled plastics compared to incineration. And we know that incinerating plastics sometimes can be a very common practice. At Dow, we're working with Mira Technology to support that rapid scale up of new advanced recycling processes. Mira's technology has demonstrated that it can recycle all forms of plastic, including the multi-layer, the flexible, which are harder to recycle, and often many times they're sent for incineration and landfill. So we've seen the industry invest over time $6 billion to scale up the recycling, over $5 billion in advanced recycling since 2017, and we need to do more of that. We also know that over 14 states have recently passed laws to enable that scale up of advanced recycling, which is another example of how policy supports innovation and circularity. Representative Haley Stevens and Representative Anthony Gonzalez are both leading important advanced recycling legislation, and we really appreciate their active engagement as well.
Now, as I mentioned, Dow has thrived as an innovator for more than a century. You've mentioned several policies across the U.S., but you also mentioned the criticality of having global cooperation. Mm-hmm. So as an innovator, I suspect you can probably identify it when you see it. What are some of the innovative, if any, policies that you've seen around the world that we should look at here within the U.S.?
I'll say this, Chris. I think that we all could talk about innovation, but I think you see in various parts of the country. Just let's talk maybe a bit more about recycling. How do we encourage people to recycle? And that's one of the things we need to do in the U.S. We can take a page out of the playbook, what we see in the European theater, or in Asia Pacific region. So I think there are many opportunities for us to learn from others. And as Cheryl mentioned again, this is about us partnering and partnering together to bring the best forward, to help us all move this forward.
It looks like we have maybe time for one audience question. Hope this doesn't catch you off guard. How did China's 2018 national sword policy affect producers' relationship with plastics and recyclable materials?
Yeah, Chris, I am not actually the expert on this one, so I apologize. That's a bit of a specific thing. I think what we're looking at is, as we look across the globe, is to say, okay, like you had mentioned earlier, what are the best policies that we can bring forward, that we can speak to, that will help us all advance what we need. One is getting plastics out of the environment, getting them back into reusable materials, and advancing circularity in the industry.
Well, thanks, Barry. Excuse me. Thank you very much for bringing your expertise and your passion to our program this morning. And we certainly look forward to continuing to work with you and your peers across the industry to solve this very critical challenge.
Great, Chris. Thanks for having me. And I hope that, if there's one thing that we all learned is that we all need to work together, right? Unprecedented collaboration to really move this effort forward. So thanks for having me today.
Thank you, Christopher and Mary. And now we have a different perspective from the many iconic brands from Procter & Gamble. I'd like to welcome Brent Heist, the Director for Packaging Sustainability at Procter & Gamble, and look forward to the discussion. Brent, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here with you today.
Thanks so much. How is Procter & Gamble working to advance a circular economy for the packaging space especially?
Yeah, and just a brief history of P&G as we get into this discussion. So we've been around for a very long time. Procter & Gamble was founded in 1837 as the combination of the respective soap and candle businesses of William Procter and James Gamble. They combined together, quite honestly, to drive scale of accessing their raw material, which at the time to make soap and candles was the waste pig fat from the pork processing industry that existed in Cincinnati. Those candles and soap were then packaged into wooden crates with sawdust dunnage to be shipped out to consumers across the growing U.S. at the time. And it was also interesting because those wooden crates that were used for shipping, back before the days of Twitter, if you wanted to get your message out, you might grab one of those wooden crates, take it down to the corner in your town or city, stand on your soapbox to get your message out. So we recognize that P&G has a history in a circular economy where waste materials were used to make useful products and packaging, and those products and packaging found an end of life that was useful as well. So if we fast forward to today, then we're stating our intents in further developing the circular economy of today through our Ambition 2030 program. And we have two primary packaging goals that are stated in Ambition 2030. The first is that 100% of our packaging will be either recyclable or reusable. And it's important in that statement to stress that we view recyclability as recyclable through the entire system. So collection, sorting, processing, and then valuable end markets for that material. The other goal is to reduce our use of virgin petroleum-derived resin by 50%. And we recognize that probably one of the major ways that we will be able to do that is by replacing that virgin resin with PCR, recycled resin. That will certainly help to drive the circular economy, as we will be a valuable end market for those materials that we've put into the system and designed to be recyclable. Very critical then for us as we're moving forward that we understand what is recyclable, where there might be gaps and challenges in the system today, and where we can work to help enable that circular economy. And I will mention one more thing too. We don't just look at recyclability and reducing virgin resin. All of our projects, as we're making these changes and improving the circularity of our packaging, we're also looking at the broader impacts. And we recognize that by using circular materials and designing for recyclability, we reduce the energy impact or energy inputs into our packaging, which certainly has climate benefits of reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
That's really important. What kinds of innovations has P&G developed that are helping to advance your circular priorities?
Yeah, we're really proud of two in particular that I'd like to share today. The first is a solvent process to recover polypropylene at a high value. So polypropylene is used widely in the industry for caps and closures. It's very valuable for that purpose, both for its physical properties, what it gives you as far as performance, as well as the ability to color it, to distinguish between different packages. So, for example, we know in our Tide business, for our Tide liquid laundry detergent, consumers tend to shop the aisle based upon the cap color. They identify the scent or the variant that they're looking for by that cap color. So it's very important that we're able to consistently deliver that cap color for our consumers to be able to efficiently shop the category. The challenge today with recycling polypropylene is, in many cases, the available recycled content is darkish grays or black colors, which doesn't work for a consumer goods company where the color is part of the equity. So we developed internally a solvent recovery process for polypropylene that cleans out the color and the contaminants, everything that's been put into these caps and closures that makes them difficult to reuse as PCR. This recovered polypropylene that has never broken the polypropylene chain, it's remained intact as a polymer, is in a virgin-like quality. We can now use it back into our caps and closures really as a one-for-one replacement for the virgin material that we had been using. Recognizing that P&G is not in the recycling processing space, we've licensed this technology out to a company called PureCycle Technologies, who is scaling up the technology, and this high quality recycled polypropylene is going to be available to the entire industry. The second area that we're really active in today is trying to understand better the consumer business model for reusable packaging. We understand that there has been a reusable packaging past. Consumers today are not attuned to this. So we're trying to learn what is it that will enable our consumers to want to use reusable packaging, what needs to be true. And we're being very careful about this because we understand that if we turn consumers off from reusable packaging, they might not be willing to try the next iterations of it. So we've had tests out there. Two most notable ones recently have been in our Olay business, where we have a refill pod that the consumer puts back into their jar at home. The other major intervention and test that we've been doing in this space is our hair care business in Europe, where we have reusable packaging and lightweight polyethylene pouch refills, so significantly reducing the amount of plastic used in that system, and certainly gives the consumers the opportunity of having a durable package that they reuse consistently but they can still shop for their variant, their preferred scent through the refills that they get at the store.
We heard Cheryl and Mary mention collaboration several times. So what are some of the partnerships that P&G has been engaged in, in your efforts around the circular economy?
Oh, absolutely. Collaboration is critical. Three that I'd like to share today really speak to what I was mentioning, that we have to have the entire recycling value stream operating efficiently and effectively. So Procter & Gamble is a founding member of the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. This is a cross-industry effort to identify and provide seed funding primarily for the infrastructure needs to enable that recycling value stream. So we're very proud to be a part of the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, seeking out those opportunities where the gaps that are need to be filled are primarily funding related, and understanding that the seed money that can be provided ends up being catalytic. It enables further funding to put the systems in place that are needed to collect and then process the plastic waste rather than landfilling or incinerating it today. Another one that we're very proud to be a part of is the Recycling Partnership's Polypropylene Recycling Coalition. So mentioned our efforts with PureCycle technology. This is an effort to ensure that in the US, consumers have access to collection and sorting of polypropylene. It is a highly valuable material. We want to ensure that the many municipalities have their system set up where consumers can put their polypropylene packaging into their recycle bin. The local MRF can sort it out into commodity bales that are then sold into the recycling industry for us to quite honestly have access to that recycled material. And finally, another project, collaboration that we're really proud to have been a part of is material recovery for the future. Plastics, in particular plastics films, are wonderful in their economic and environmental benefit of reducing the amount of material used. They're a challenge to recover today, though. Most municipalities really do not want this material in their bins because, quite honestly, plastic film is seen as poison to a MRF. As the material recovery facilities are designed today, it tends to gum up the operations, really makes it difficult for them to run efficiently. So Material Recovery for the Future made modifications to a material recovery facility in the Philadelphia area that today is collecting and sorting curbside the flexible film packaging that has been such an industry challenge in the past. They're generating bales of this flexible packaging material for sale into the market. And we're looking for opportunities through collaboratives to expand this capability across more of the U.S.
Well, we have one question from the audience here, so let's see if this fits. As low oil prices have made plastic made from virgin materials cheaper than plastic made from recycled products, can the recycling industry survive without a mandate to use the 30% recycled material from new plastic?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, and it is true that virgin plastic prices tend to move with the price of oil. Several years ago, when oil was significantly higher cost, that was a challenge of using the virgin material, and quite honestly, the recycled material was in many cases lower cost. What we are trying to do is disconnect that pricing from our decision making. And you see this across the consumer goods companies, that we're committing to using recycled resin. And once we start using PCR into our packaging, we don't back off. So it's our long-term commitment. We know that the industry needs that long-term commitment as a value signal. So we don't ever look at a project as just a substitution of materials into the packaging. We do what we call holistic innovation. So as we are upgrading our packaging by including PCR, we look at the product, we look at the other benefits that we're offering to consumers. We look at other ways that we could potentially save costs. So it's not a simple binary decision. Through holistic innovation, many times we're able to offset those costs, or to offer our consumers new and better benefits through other parts of the initiatives that we're delivering to them.
No, thanks so much. Really impressive, some of the innovation and partnerships that P&G has been involved in. I guess, are there any challenges? You mentioned the issue around flexible packaging at MRFs. Are there other challenges that you're seeing in the recycling space that particularly relative to meeting your needs for recycled product?
Yeah, the biggest challenge, and it's been mentioned times before and today, is the quality of the material once it's been collected and sorted. This is particularly a challenge in the single stream system for collecting recyclables that we have in the US. It all comes down to sorting and the efficiency of that sorting in many cases. So we're really happy to be a part of the Holy Grail initiative, which is another collaborative that's looking at improving the sorting at a MRF so that we can get better and cleaner sorts of the materials, particularly plastic, by basically hiding, if you will, barcodes throughout the artwork of the packaging. It's called digital watermarking. It's fantastic because it's virtually invisible to the consumer, but it enables you in a material recovery facility to automatically sort based upon the brand identification. So tied behind that, you can know what the packaging material and format is and ensure that it gets to the right stream. So that's going to drive a lot of efficiency in the system, which will help to drive down the cost and the challenges of contamination and quality. Currently, this is in a pilot phase study in Europe with over 80 companies, a part of the collaborative, to test this out real life. There will be products in the market with packaging that has this Holy Grail digital watermarking technology, and there are MRFs that will be sorting based upon scanning the packaging and positively identifying which of the commodity bales that specific brand packaging needs to be sorted to.
Well, thanks so much. Really appreciate your time here, Brent. Enjoyed the conversation, and we look forward to working with you as we push these issues forward.
My pleasure. I appreciate it.
Back to you, Marty.
Well, let me again thank Chris, Cheryl, Mary, and Brent for joining us today. And Brent, thanks for the reminder about the soapbox reference. I also just want to take a minute to thank the team from GEI and the broader chamber for all the work that goes into putting these events together, both the people you see on the screen and the many behind the scenes. And of course, finally, I just want to again thank our sponsor, Siemens Energy. Our next event is scheduled for September 30th, and the focus will be on hydrogen and how it will be an important factor in decarbonizing our economy. You can find the registration link in the chat box. So thank you again for joining us.